Good morning, everybody. It's been a while. It's been about 2 months since I posted last and gave any updates. So I figured now was a good time to check back in and let everybody know how things have been going. Um, I'm going to touch really briefly today on just overall and then get into it. Been planning this for, well, since day one. So today I'm going to let's talk about sex. That's what I'm going to talk about today. Um, so I know if you are a woman and you are facing a hysterectomy, it's a huge concern. And even for the husbands out there, significant others, it can be a concern. So I am going to give a little rundown. I got a few notes here about my personal experience, and just highlight a few things. Again, it's individual for every woman that has to go through it. So my experience may not be your experience, but I do believe it's helpful to watch videos like this, read some of the blog posts, things like that, that women post, and just kind of know, feedback. I did it. I read all of the things and watched the videos, and it gave me a little bit of peace of mind to kind of know. I think it better prepared me for worst case, and also gave me some peace of mind that maybe it wouldn't be as bad as I might have been expecting. So with that, I'm going to move into it. So I'm doing really well. Today I am 3 months, 2 weeks, 2 days post-op. So I'm pretty much back to normal with everything. I'm lifting, without restrictions. I've been hiking, pretty decent hiking, and able to push myself to my normal, capacity. I haven't done any intense workouts or anything like that because, quite frankly, I've been lazy. But yeah, that's for another time. But as far as what I enjoy doing and being able to do the normal, things that I have to do for work, that sort of thing, I'm back to walking at my really brisk pace, lifting heavy, things like I have to lift a lot for my job. So, heavy cases of drinks and water and cat litter, that sort of thing, heavy bags of dog food, and actually carry those things up, several flights of stairs, that sort of thing. So, no restriction whatsoever. I will say that I did begin to have I didn't know what it was at the time, but some nerve pain. And although that has subsided for the most part, there are times when I have pushed myself, like when we went hiking recently and spent a day, doing some pretty decent hiking on some trails, a lot of climbing up and down, steep inclines. And I did experience some nerve pain. Most of my nerve pain initially was in my hips and down my thighs, radiating down my thighs. But I've experienced what feels like that same sort of pain at times in my pelvic region. So I'm just assuming, because it feels the same as it did in my hips and thighs, that could be what's going on. Have not been to the doctor to confirm that, but that's what it feels like. It's not horrible. I mean, it's not like the best. It's just kind of like this dull, aching, kind of pain. But it subsides, goes away, after a day or two of anything intense. So I still don't feel restricted by that or feel like I necessarily need to slow down. I guess it's kind of like, recovering after intense workout. You don't stop going to the gym. Maybe you take it a little bit easier for a day or two, but you don't stop. So that's how I would relate that. But overall, great. I'm doing really, really well. So let's go ahead and get into it, about the sex side of things. If you are a family member or friend and this is going to make you uncomfortable in any way, this is where you want to stop watching this video. I'm going to try to be as matter of fact, without being too graphic, but I do want to explain things thoroughly. So if you watch this video and you feel like I haven't explained something thoroughly enough, or I need to elaborate on something a little further, feel free to drop a question, comment, and I'll be happy to elaborate further. So that being said, here we go. So day 2 post-op, I experienced some pretty intense sexual arousal. So I have read, and my doctor explained to me that was caused from all of the blood flow to the area to stimulate healing. That being said, it was intense. So I did avoid anything to relieve that for several days, but the intensity of that, as well as the curiosity, got the best of me. So that by day 5, I was able to achieve an orgasm independently. So I was very took it kind of easy, for lack of a better term, and without a lot of penetration or anything like that. It was all external. So, but yes, I did achieve an orgasm by day 5, although it did not feel as intense as what I typically would feel. I attributed that, and later confirmed with my my surgeon. Sorry, I feel like I have a hair in my face. That the nerves are still healing, and also, you know, I had my ovaries, fallopian tubes, and cervix removed. So the best way I can describe it was, prior to my hysterectomy, you know, an orgasm felt deeper into my body and more waves, and radiating through the body parts that were there, you know, contractions that, you know, were felt in my cervix as well. And so the lack of having a cervix, it did kind of dampen that a bit, at least in the beginning. So yeah, so self-stimulation, day 5, all externally, and I did achieve orgasm. So one thing I also noticed in the first few weeks was very erect, sore nipples. So that's due to hormonal fluctuations. And even though my I think I said I had my ovaries removed, but that is not correct. I had my uterus, fallopian tubes, and cervix removed. So correction there. My ovaries are still in place. That being said, even though my ovaries were left in place, you can still experience hormonal fluctuations, you know, when you have everything else removed. And so your body's trying to adjust and compensate. So hormonal fluctuations in the beginning are common, even if you keep your ovaries. So that was very likely what was leading to the sore, erect nipples. And that did come and go pretty frequently for the first few weeks after my surgery. So it wasn't unbearable as far as like clothes and things like that, but I definitely did not want them touched or stimulated very much in any way. Day 8 and 9, I experienced a slight increase in the vaginal bleeding. So it was very, very slight, noticeable, but slight, which is also very, very normal, very common. So yeah, those were things leading up to actual vaginal intercourse that I experienced. So during that period, for the first 7, 8 weeks, after probably week 2 to 3, I did begin to explore a little bit with my husband and include my husband in, sexual stimulation. Everything remained external. Again, I, had to be really mindful of the first few weeks with, any stimulation here on my breasts. But we were able to do other things to keep our intimacy, going. So probably after the first few weeks, we were able to, do some things there. So it didn't take very long to get to that point. And, that was satisfactory, for those weeks of healing. And, during that time, again, going back to, that day 5, during that time, I did experience orgasm, but they just did not feel as intense as what I had been used to feeling. So that left a lot of worry and concern, like, is this my new normal? I was relieved that I was able to still achieve orgasm, but, kind of disappointed that, okay, is it going to stay like this? So that brings me to the first time my husband and I had vaginal intercourse. That was at post-op 7 weeks and 4 days. It was just shy of 8 weeks. I know, I was technically clear to do that at 6 weeks, but I did want to wait the 8 weeks. I'd had my appointment, and, he said everything was good, but I waited a little bit longer. So 7 weeks, 4 days, we had vaginal intercourse for the first time. We took it very slow and easy, and I will say it did feel different that first time. I think there was a lot of worry in the back of my mind, and I can't speak for my husband, but I'm sure he, kind of felt like, I don't want to hurt her. So yeah, we just kind of eased into things, and took it really slow and easy. It did feel different internally. I was hyper aware of, like, the vaginal cuff, and, like, not that I could feel any discomfort with it, or, I've heard some women say that their husband could literally feel the stitches when they were still present, and mine were, as per my exam my surgeon had given me before this, the stitches were still present, but my husband did not feel that. And I didn't feel any discomfort with that. It just felt odd because the top of my vagina is no longer connected to my cervix and other things. It's just kind of, it's not connected to anything. So I don't really know how to put it into words or describe it, but it just felt different. The lack of, women achieve orgasm very individually in all different sorts of ways, whether it be all, external through the clitoris, or, some women are lucky enough that, they found their G-spot. For me, cervical stimulation, hitting the bottom of the cervix, was a big factor in how good sex felt to me, and the ability to achieve orgasm during vaginal penetration. Um, it just stimulated me in a different way. So no longer having that, and then the nerves still healing and everything like that. Everything feeling less intense and less pleasurable. It wasn't painful. It was pleasurable, but not as much so. It did at the end of that interaction. It did leave me very emotional, and I actually cried. And my husband thought that I was crying because maybe I thought that it felt less pleasurable to him, and he reassured me, no, it feels, just as good. And I was like, I'm not crying for you, I'm crying for me. I'm crying for me because it doesn't feel the same to me anymore. And I was just like, is this it? So I was disappointed, I was emotional, and just a lot of worry there. So what I ended up doing was I made another appointment with my surgeon, because I wanted to make sure that no trauma had occurred to that vaginal cuff. Even though I had no signs or symptoms, no bleeding, no pain, nothing like that, I wanted reassurance. I wanted my surgeon to get back in there and see, since we had had sex a handful of times, that everything was still good. So I did make a follow-up appointment and went back, and he said everything looked great and it was healing beautifully, like it couldn't have looked any better than it did. So huge relief. I think that helped me moving forward, making that extra appointment, having that feedback from him helped me relax more so that I could enjoy, women especially, it's all, mental, emotional. I mean, we need that, and we need to be able to relax to enjoy sex. So yeah, that I do believe that was one of the best things I could have done, was schedule that follow-up with him after having sex, even though he had cleared everything, even though I did not have any negative symptoms. And I was able to talk to him about that I had cried the first time and why, and is it gonna stay like this? And he offered reassurance by letting me know, look, it's only been a couple of months. This was, despite those small little incisions that you see, that look like little scratches, a lot more trauma has occurred inside your body, especially with the nerves. So those nerves need time to repair themselves. And I know it's not the same for every woman, and some women develop, scar tissue and that sort of thing where, unfortunately, it might stay that way, that lack of feeling or maybe even additional pain. But, he assured me, just give it time. You're not quite there yet. And there's a very, very high chance that as those nerves repair, you will begin to enjoy, sexual stimulation a bit more. Although it may feel different, the lack of intensity, that intensity could return. So I, was able to breathe and, come back. And I can say at this point, 3.5 months later, sex is enjoyable again. The nerves have definitely, healed up enough that that orgasm feels a lot better. And I do enjoy, vaginal intercourse. So yeah. Yeah, it's getting better, a lot better. Still miss the cervical stimulation. Um, but I mean, considering the trade-off, I mean, because when you have the level of pain that I was having, um, and you're sick that often, you don't feel like, being intimate with anybody anyway. So, the trade off, I'll take it. 1000%, I'll take it. Um, the, uh, the sensitivity with my breast that dissipated after a few weeks, so that's completely resolved. Um, I would say that I've heard some women say, oh, my, sexual arousal and, desire increased dramatically after surgery. I know a lot of women experience, for various reasons, pain, maybe from endometriosis and that sort of thing during sex. Um, I would say, it's been, it hasn't increased dramatically for me. It's stayed pretty much the same. So, back to normal, and and feeling pretty good about it. So, um, yeah, I mean, the healing, didn't go as fast as I wanted it to, but when I look back, I mean, 3.5 months after a major surgery like that, and I'm pretty much back to myself, other than a few little things here and there. Pretty happy, pretty happy with the outcome. So yeah, I think that about covers it. Oh, um, I know some women talk about how they experience like vaginal dryness and that sort of thing, um, after a hysterectomy. And I don't know if that leans more towards, women who had their ovaries removed, which I did not. But that being said, I have not had any issues whatsoever with that. Maybe in the beginning, like when we were first getting started, you know, it had been a little while, and with all the changes and everything, we did use we used coconut oil, so that's what we used. Um, Although, you know, I have heard that that's maybe not the best thing after a hysterectomy. I don't know, but that's what we've always used. So, that being said, past the first, few times after that, we didn't really need any assistance in that area. So, yeah, it's pretty much back to normal. Super, super relieved about that. So I'll touch on, I'm going to talk about mental health. I have suffered most of my life, and had bouts of depression and anxiety. My life is been super crazy this past year. That's another reason why I haven't gotten on before now, because I have been back to normal as far as, our normal sex life for, a little while now. But this is the first time that I've been able to really gather my thoughts and get on here and post. A lot going on. Our son came back from Utah. Long story, but he was in school there. And he was seeing someone that didn't work out. He's back home. He is going through the process of joining the Navy, which is something that had been talked about for a long time. We are a Navy family, both myself and my husband served in the Navy, and our daughter has been in for the past 2 years. So now our son is getting ready to go, probably by the end of this summer. So been really, really busy with that, and just life going on. So, you know, I did feel some pretty significant anxiety throughout my recovery. And my surgeon said, hey, while you're going through this, I don't want to, I can start you on something, but I don't want to start you on any medication, because I hadn't taken anything for my depression or anxiety for at least 8 years. So he's like, I don't want to start you on anything because your body's still healing, and we don't want to start something, while you're going through that process. So by the time I did see him, I let him know that last time, like, look, it hasn't really subsided. I'm still really struggling with anxiety, and I'm feeling unmotivated. I'm feeling depressed, and like I'm really having to push myself to power through and do, my daily tasks and work and all of that, and not be a horrible person to my family. So he did go ahead and start me on antidepressant. So I've been taking that for almost a month now, and it significantly helped reduce my anxiety and my depression. I think I might be at a point where, because it was slow dose, that I might need to increase my dose. I do plan on talking to my primary care provider about that. So I don't know how much of that is, as far as the increase in those feelings was related to my surgery. It's just, something that happened around the same time. So it has been a very challenging year, a lot of big changes that can certainly increase, anxiety and depression, especially in somebody like me who already struggles with it. And then going through the surgery and all the changes with my body, I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to shelf this anymore. I'm going to address this, and I want to feel like my best self. And so I did make the decision, despite the huge gap in, me using any medications to address it, and I spoke to my very good girlfriend. We went to Virginia to see my daughter and her husband and help them get settled in their first apartment together. So that was really awesome to be able to do that. But we stayed with a longtime friend of mine, and she is a therapist, and she reassured me that, there's no shame in just saying, you know what, I need something more. And, I don't, there's just no reason to go through life, feeling like that. So, I went ahead and talked to my doctor, and I'm very glad that I did. So I don't know if I'll end up needing to stay, on it long term, or if it'll be like it has in the past where, I've been on it for a while and then been able to come back off of it. But whatever happens, I'm fine with that. So yeah, that's about it. I can't see any reason to follow up from here unless something crazy happened, which, at this point, let's hope not, right? Let's hope everything is just on the upside. That's what it feels like. So I'm pretty pleased with that. Again, if anybody has any further, questions or wants me to elaborate on anything, I am more than happy to get in deep with you individually, or in the comment section. I'm not opposed to that either. Feel free to ask. But that has been my journey. I hope that for anybody, women, or, significant others, or even, a family member that has somebody that's, going through this, If you're watching this, I hope that it gives a little insight and it's helpful. And I wish you the very best on your journey. Thanks so much for following along with me, and I really appreciate everybody, and take care.